Hello and welcome to episode 352 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And he's the ghost in our shell. It's Tony Esmond.
Oh, manga.
Yeah, indeed. I was trying to go through like loads of different titles, and most of them, when I say that you are such and such, it just sounded really rude.
What have I got here? I am the summit of the gods. I am the abandoned old man in Tokyo. That works.
He's finally lost it. I don't think they're titles, Dan.
I am the slum wolf. I like that one.
I think. Oh yes, Slum Wolf's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just the three of us this week, three amigos, but we're here to round off Manga Month, which has been a fun and thoroughly.
Have we subtitled it Manga Musings?
Have we?
I don't know. Have we?
Yeah, we have
easy ideas, man. He gets the big money, the big bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just taking a look back. We will probably do this sort of thing again. We'll do it a month, but make it more like a sort of each week. We'll probably look at a different sort of genre and pick a title and things like that. But it's been a fun month of comics and discovery and listener interactivity and some great guests to talk about all the different types of manga with us, and also we're gonna sort of Dan's. I think Musings right, Dan, because we are sort of looking back and going, how does
very Radio 4, aren't we?
Yeah. How does this make us feel about comics now? So
But next week I've got a pile of fucking small press stuff that's just built up.
Yeah,
mate. Yeah, I've got a couple. Yeah.
I'll just send you one. Actually, did you see that one I sent on the WhatsApp?
I did. So I look at it. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So expect to be back to the, I say, regular programming next week.
Irregular programming.
There's a few things we're going to talk about and some catch ups on some stuff that we're going to start next week, and we might get a little bit ranty. So
we've already had a rant, and between ourselves.
We had a rant, but then we thought we'll save it.
Just just opened the tap to ease off the pressure, and then quickly stopped it. But it's still all in there, isn't it?
Yeah. I went off on one, and then Vince went, "Anyway, how are you, Tony?" I went, "Oh yeah, I've just gone off on it, haven't I?"
Yeah. But this week we're looking back on the month that was, and we're going to have fun doing that. We also have fun checking out our lovely sponsor, don't we, guys?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
But who are they?
And we got a winner of the prize as well, haven't we?
We do. Once I pick them out of the hat.
Don't muddy up the lead-in. Anyway, Comic House.
Does muddy up mean something I'm not aware of?
If you play your cards right. Comic House, please don't. Our lovely sponsor. They are an indie comic marketplace with a difference. They love indie comics as much as we do, and you do. If you go to comichouse.com, there's a huge selection of titles on the database, people who self-publish, and you can list your book on there, and it's another avenue to get selling your books straight away. But they've also got an app, which is brilliant to check out. We briefly, before we started, talked about the price of a digital book, and I've ranted about it many times. You might get another rant about it next week. Yeah. But seriously, the Comic House app is amazing. It's been added to all the time. It's basically like Netflix for comics. Subscription service, £3 a month, which is as cheap as chips, because I think a portion of chips is probably that these days. And you get access to an enormous library that's being added to all the time. What's on there at the moment, Dan?
We've got several titles, including Sherlock Holmes vs. Skeletor by Gareth Brooks, Penguin, Master of Nine. We've got Fred Peterson, The Mighty Warlord, Volume 1. Future Sci-Fi Tales.
Who's Fred Peterson?
He's the Mighty Warlord.
Oh, okay.
And that's subtitled Talk Back at the Ocean. Never Mind Truthful Comics Edition Volume 1. And we also have a number of titles by William Shatner. And he's presenting the Tech War Chronicles.
Who writes that with him?
That's an interesting one, because that's our question for the readers, listeners even. And the writer who wrote that with Shatner is Scott Davis.
I know Scott.
And let me plunge my hand into this big barrel of names. And we've got The winner is the Mega City Book Club. So
Hey,
Eamon.
He's on holiday at the moment.
We just made that holiday.
Yeah, that turned that into a good holiday, didn't it? No more sitting in a rainy caravan with your family, Eamon.
He could load up Comic House with the 3-month subscription he's now won himself and work his way through William Shatner's Tech War Chronicles, where hero Jake Cardigan.
I love that. I just love that name, Jake Cardigan. I think it's the greatest name ever.
His sidekick Barry Wyfronts.
Head jumper. After spending 4 years in cryogenic status for crimes he is certain did not commit, Jake Cardigan is mysteriously released. There we go.
Good.
Seems a bit of a kind of if you kind of put in cryogenic stasis for a crime, then you just come out completely the same. Nothing's changed apart
That's
from the
surely
world.
the idea, isn't it? And if it freezes you, you don't really feel that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, you're not
in prison, do you?
There's not a lot lost.
If someone said to me, you can either go to prison for a year or you can be a cryogenic freezing for 5 years, I go, I'll do the 5 years because I won't know.
5 years, yeah. So, how was it? What do you mean? So we just come out? Oh,
yeah. Oh, only okay. Danny just put me in.
That's all right.
Yeah. Check that nothing's happened to your knob, because you know what happened to that skier, didn't he, in the Olympics? He froze his knob, didn't he?
What was he doing?
I wonder if Shatner broaches that subject in the Tech War Chronicles.
Maybe, but you'll have to find out. If
they can find out,
on Comic House.
The Mystery of the Frozen Knob.
Yeah.
It's episode 3.
So go for
at William Shatner, Twitter. There's Jake Cardigan.
Freeze his knob off.
How does he unfreeze his knob?
Yeah. But you can find out on Comic House. Go to comichouse.com, find out more, and to start your 14-day free trial. So there you go. Thank you very much to Comic House for sponsoring the show.
How are we going to put him in? I suppose you can just message Pete, can he? Or we can give his email to Pete or something.
Yeah,
William Shatner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's who's organising the competition.
Yeah. He's on with his birthday. There's a little treat for him on his birthday this week, wasn't it?
So yeah, we'll sort that out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
The tech heads at ACPHQ.
Yeah. the tech heads. Dan, people. Do you think people actually believe that there's more than us three? We're just getting through.
Yourself, you know what a genius I am behind the keyboard.
Yeah, we have to present this illusion of us being sort of
that's true. Yeah.
Competent, which
do you remember when
falls apart quickly.
In Red Dwarf, when Rimmer got extra brain power, so he could join that ship full of holograms,
yeah.
And he was like typing on 2 keyboards at the same time and stuff. Yeah. That's what I imagine you're like, Dan.
Yeah, but Rimmer does have a meltdown. That's more like me. Later on, doesn't he? When they,
I read the novels for that. They're actually quite good novels, aren't they? And I love. There's always a bit in one of the novels that says, "Will you stop emphasising Rim when you say my name?"
I've never read any of the books.
They're good, actually.
Did the novels come first, or was it they did the show?
No, they did them afterwards. Yeah, I think they started coming out about season 3. You know when it got good.
Yeah.
I always see a lineup of those books in like the little local bookshop.
Yeah, they're quite nice, you know.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Conrad from Space Spinner, the 2000 AD themed podcast, and he was telling me, I said, because he's moved to England from America. I said, how are you finding the curries? And he said, I'm all over the curries because of Red Dwarf. I thought, good man. Yeah.
Nice.
That's good.
What a cultural event Red Dwarf was.
Yeah.
Cultural touchstone for the UK.
Yeah, quite a good one, really. Anyway, before we get stuck into the actual topic, we do, of course, we've got to mention something this week, don't we, Tony? If you want we've known he's not been very well for long, but our thoughts go out to the friends and family of Steve Walsh. Yeah.
People might know him from Avery Hill or Gosh, or just general comics. I used to bump into him all sorts of events. I doubt there's anyone out there who's met Steve who wouldn't call him a friend, because he was genuinely one of the nicest people I knew. Always chuckling and always laughing. We used to see him at the Marts, and if there was an event at Orbital, I used to see him in there. And I've spent many happy hours chatting to him over the years. We really do. Our feelings, really, and thoughts do go out to the people at Avery Hill and the people at Gosh and stuff, and his friends and family in general. What a nice dude. A really, really top dude, I've got to tell you. Yeah, I've never heard anyone say a bad word about Steve, because he was a seriously nice dude. And it's a big loss to the UK comic scene. there you go. We had to mention it because I know we've all met him, and he is was a super guy.
Yeah, very much just a real supporter of indie comics and
very much so
small press as well.
And it was him who reached out to us. I think if you listen to the Avery Hill podcast, we have an advert on it, and it's us giggling along doing an advert that Steve asked us to do, and he was amused by it, and he always had nice things to say about us. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But we wanted to mention that straight up. So, yeah. But I think now this one's going to be interesting because we're going to sort of look back on the month that was. Thank you to everyone who's listened to this past month of episodes, and our lovely guests for joining us. I'm sure this is only the beginning. This has truly been. I mean, we've called it Manga Month, and we even did like a little logo, which is on like, the Podbean, etc., and the YouTubes, etc. And it's been a fun one. It's been fun. I know we were talking about this for a while, delving into manga, and I know a lot of our listeners are regular manga.
Well, Helen's going to come back, isn't she? We heard in week one. And she said, I'd love to have her back on. Yeah.
And we've. I think it's definitely. There's so much more to it. How could we ever cover it? I mean, you probably knew there are podcasts probably out dedicated to it. We would never have enough time. We'd probably do a year of it, wouldn't we? Really, if we started, because there's so much to it. But it has been fun, and it's been eye opening, and it's only just the beginning. And we've got some sort of thoughts.
Well, I think the thing is as well, man, is it's not. We're living in almost like a post manga or a manga influenced comics world now. Anyway, I mean, I sent you that Image comic, didn't I?
Yeah.
There's so much that we even Batman books and all sorts of things. We see a real reflection of the manga world in American comics and British comics now. Anyway,
I did see some sort of derision of people like, oh look, not aimed at us, mind you, like, oh look, they're getting into manga and anime, and it's like, well, it has seen a kind of like it's been around for a while, and I think we're kind of a bit late to the game, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's seen a definite resurgence in the past sort of 6 months to a year, and especially with kind of like when you kind of correlate the sales of kind of Western comics alongside the manga titles, and the manga titles appear to be like an absolutely dominating force that just keep growing and growing. It's hard to ignore it, and it definitely kind of come more into the forefront.
I think there's a lot of questions to be asked and answered about what's the US and UK comic scene missing that Japan's getting right.
I've put one of those like, what lessons could Western comic creators and publishers, both indie and otherwise, learn from manga?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about it, haven't we? And I think the ability to read a comic and stick with it and not have to read flaming crossovers, is a great
one title. It's all everything you need to read is in that comic. You don't need to go anywhere else. There's no kind of like side titles or, like you say, Tony, crossovers or big events. I mean, can you imagine like reading some of these titles and then suddenly they have a massive crossover with tons of other characters? There's 2 issues in, you're going nuts.
But to put another sort of spin on it, another flavour, we do of course have like the indie and like the Image comics and stuff that don't have this. Let's get away from the Marvel and DC. They don't have that baggage of all the crossovers and stuff. And I think there's a definite difference in reading culture, because with the books that I've been reading with manga, normally they move at a hell of a pace. They zip along. There's never too many panels on a page. Sometimes there's hardly any dialogue on a double page spread, or an issue. You're just absolutely just bang, 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 and just moving through it at quite a pace.
I think that policy of writing a chapter as if you're sitting on the tube, between tube stops.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's a great idea.
But I think a Western audience has sort of developed a way of reading where they're not used to that. Certainly that's probably why when people try manga, it's such a, whoa, I need to get used to it. This is strange. This isn't what I'm used to.
Yeah.
But like with an Image comic, for instance, if you were going to try an ongoing series, how are you going to get to 64 issues? Do you know what I mean? Because
what Image book does that anymore?
Yeah, the pacing's so much different. There's so much more on a page. They have to pack more onto a page sometimes, and partly that's due to the way maybe we're conditioned, a bit of a hard word, but the way we're sort of hardwired in our brain to read sort of Western comics and the flow of a story. But that also, there's another level to it, and it's at the industry level, I think, because with manga, it is. I mean, we've talked briefly before about when you see like a spreadsheet of these people's day-to-day work, and it is industry as well, isn't it? It's just full on all the time. And we talk about how Western comics sometimes it'll take them forever to do one issue of something.
Taking a look into the lifestyle of kind of those that create mangas, I don't find it envious at all. Like they're absolutely just on it all the time. Like there's that one person who was sleeping only like a few hours a night just to get it done, and the interns and people working like on the background stuff can get treated really harshly. Yeah, because of the work kind of lifestyle over there.
And if you as we learned, like these admittedly sort of interesting sort of like you vote for your favourite strip, and if your strip loses popularity, then the strip stops. Let's look at from a reader, it's like, you vote for your favourite. That's fun. It's interactive. From a creator, you're on a wire. You're on a. Do you know what I mean? It's a different kind of stress, isn't it?
It's also that push to make it. It's also that push to make it a popular medium. I think availability is a huge thing, and I think that goes hand in hand with popularity and available popularity. And I think comics, if we should be for everyone, they should be available for everyone. There should be, obviously, I think when we say gatekeepers, we think of something else. But to me, gatekeepers is the fact you can only buy fucking American comics and a lot of British comics in comic shops, of which there are fuck all now.
Yeah.
So what the thing with manga, if you want the newest manga, it's as likely to be in Waterstones as it is likely, and it's as likely to be on Amazon as it is to be in a comic shop. In fact, it's less likely to be in a comic shop these days.
It's almost like we talk about how, like the weekly comics and stuff, how difficult it is to get them into the news agents, how we all discovered, a lot of us discovered them, how often do you see a comic in there now? Obviously, correct me, some of you may have seen occasionally a manga in there. They've foregone that and moved straight to the bookshops, and they're taking over the bookshops.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
There's a real, which is
not like the tatty old Marvel trades like they seem to have in most bookshops these days.
It's been there about 10 years. Fucked.
Which is it, and I tell you what, just looking at it like that as well, it's a very different viewing experience when you go into these bookshops and you see this, because I've stood in front of the the Marvel and DC trades and stuff, and they're thinner spines, usually black, and sometimes you have to squint your eyes to see what the title of the actual especially if it's just like some Marvel arc. You're like, what one's that? Oh, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
But you go to the Tokyo Pop, the manga section. They're usually like they're thick books. Most of it, a lot of them have white spines with just the title very clearly on it. And what volume
I know
it
it's
is.
Different page count, but you can pull out like a fucking house brick of a manga book for like 15 quid, and you pick out like a tiny sliver of a Marvel or DC book, and it's sometimes more the same as that.
Yeah. Some Marvel Marvel books are like 32 issues, and they're like 32 quid.
Yeah,
what's that about? I think the thing is as well is if you want to, so you go in a shop and you want to buy an Avengers trade. I buy the Avengers every week, and even I would have to have a think about what is the most recent story going on.
Yeah,
you go in and you want a copy of JoJo's or something. You just look at number 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm up to number 4. I buy number 5.
Exactly,
it's easy.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It is that sort of like who
knows what fucking volume of Daredevil we're on now? Who knows? It's like this. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And
it happens like when you get to, and there are some like. For instance, like an Uncanny X-Men, sometimes they'll have like the 1, 2, 3, but then because it gets rebooted,
rarely on the trade, mate. Rarely on. They don't have that on the trade, and that's what the kids want.
Yeah, because you want to know where you are. So immediately you look at the shelves when you're looking at spines of books. Already they got a leg up. Certainly when you see that sort of wall of text and white and stuff, you'd be like, well, I don't know what any of them are. but the people that go into those bookshops know what they're looking for. They're going in, they're having that comic book, that newsagent experience in a bookshop, because they go in going, I need to get the latest book of such, Demon Slayer. Just say something like, I need number 52. They'll go straight to that Waterstones, they'll go straight to that bookshop, and they'll see the number and they'll get it.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, like, it's strange, isn't it? It's like there's almost less competition because there's more brand and story loyalty from the readers.
I'm as likely to buy a trade of manga from a comic shop from a bookshop as I am a comic shop these days.
Yeah.
They're just all there.
Yeah.
And it's
you
great
try
when
and,
you look.
you try and find the new issue of Punisher in this country. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And you go
Or 2000 AD. Sorry to interrupt.
Those
Sorry.
books, you can go and see it. Like, it's like, right, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've all got the same design, same color, same height. They all kind of like got that brand together.
Yeah.
It's really kind of easy to see where you've got to go. There's a great big number at the base of the spine telling you what volume it is.
Yeah.
It's
it speaks volumes to what the publishers have built up. Even those that are publishing translations and stuff, they know it's working, and they just got the hunger is there for it. They just got to keep feeding it. It's content, isn't it? It's essentially like, right, people want it, let's just keep delivering it.
The other thing I think they do as well is they have a reverence for old creators that we seem in the US and UK scene to have forgotten.
Yeah.
So look at the amount of creators we've talked about here who have been going for 40, 50 years, some of them, Yeah. The Tezukas and Mizukis and all these sort of people. There's as much reverence on the shelf for them as there is, for the newer creators. And I think that's quite right. But if, how much reverence is there for Steve Englehart or Jim Starlin or, Doug Mensch or,
It's respect and honouring the creators,
I mean,
isn't it?
It may be because of the corporations and stuff, they kind of like seem to kind of want to do those original creators out of kind of what they were owed. And do you know what I mean? All that kind of fucking mess.
Yeah.
But they don't feel like there's much reverence or respect to kind of, from certain parts of the.
I mean, naming no names around conventions. We've just seen a certain convention, name loads of comedians and politicians before we ever saw some of the people who fucking started the company.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get. I get the sense you wouldn't get that in Japan.
I wasn't sure if that was a strategy to kind of like, look, we're building up to the big boys, as it were, or not. It seemed to be very.
It might have been, yeah. To be fair, it might have been. It just felt a bit mishandled.
To be fair, if you're questioning why are they doing this, they've done it wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're thinking, what's this about? Like, your strategy's not quite correct.
For me, it's almost like if you're going to do that, I would stagger it so you have like one new name, one old name. Do you know what I mean? So that you're not naming the same names all the time, and then adding some new people. It would be like, oh, here's this person. Oh, and there's a new person. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of
I think the release of names was ill-judged, wasn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. But I think, I mean, back to manga. I think when I say Western comics, I'm going. It's got to be said. It seems, and this is purely from what I see on my experience. So feel free to correct me, listeners, etc. When I say, I always think UK and US. That's the way I look at it. Because
as we see BD as separate, don't we?
Because the way that the way that the medium is treated in Europe is certainly seems to be more respectful of its creators. It's more like the Japanese side, isn't it? It's definitely it's a culture, with the Ongolems and things.
They almost seem to have more respect for American creators. Ongolem, and you've got a Wally-Wood exhibition. When was the last time you were at MCM and there was a Wally-Wood exhibition? It's like
yeah. So there's definitely.
Speaking of which, there was apparently a Mizuki yokai exhibition at Ongolem this year. It would have been good to go to.
Yeah, so it's culturally, it's sort of it's on another level, isn't it? Really, compared to, I mean, as we've been going about this medium of comics that we're seeing, and we vent about this publisher or that publisher making what we think are mistakes. It's easy to be a backseat driver or like critic about things, but it just feels like manga's just stronger than
for me. I think manga have just remembered that comics are for everyone. I don't think there's no stronger a statement than that we've made through every episode of it.
They're to be read. They're to be
Comics
enjoyed
are for reading. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just get them into people's hands. They're not supposed to be collector's items. And
I think we need to remember that in the in fandom, as well as the what I see from the companies, is we need to talk about the stories and the characters more rather than the politics or the opinions of the creators, which seems to be the way it's gone. I'm not interested in that. I want to know what Spider-Man's up to.
You follow any some of the creators I follow, don't professionals, don't talk about their work at all. It's just
we need to talk about what's happening next month, who the villain is appearing next month. What the cliffhanger is.
Talk about
cliffhanger. I love all that stuff, man. That's why I'm in it. We're in it for the stories. And I think they remember that in manga. I think they do. They're always talking about what's happening in, Demon Slayer and all this sort of thing.
So, kind of as this month, the manga month, has it changed any of your kind of preconceptions you've had about manga in general?
Oh, hugely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't fully appreciate. Appreciated it from a certain point because we all read manga before, didn't we? But I didn't appreciate the depth of adult material out there. But not when I say adult, I don't mean hentai and bumming videos. I mean
the seinen manga, which is I've had my eyes completely open to that.
Yeah, but also Gekiga, which is the sort of the stuff that is really sort of quite highbrow stuff. That a lot of people are doing. I mean, Tezuka, I'll talk about a book of his later, which blew my mind this weekend. But he was doing Astro Boy, and he was doing that very developed, intelligent stuff. Mizuki was doing, yokai, stories about demons, and they got turned into animes, as well as he was telling the history of Japan post-war. And Barefoot Gen, oh my god, that broke me.
Yeah,
that's the most brutal. I learned so much through all that. When I thought previously, adult material was the stuff we were seeing in Crying Freeman and stuff, but it's not. There's such a highbrow area to it. I just absolutely love.
See, that's the stuff I want to start reading. That's one of the things I've taken away from this month. Is that's the stuff I want to get into because I've read a lot of shonen stuff, and to the point where it's like, right, I've had enough of this. It's become for me almost like a lot of this stuff is formulaic. They try a formula. I can see stories and patterns that are very similar in every title. It's because they know this works and they're trying it again with this character or this.
I suppose it's the same property. Way that we would, if we read Beano for 40 years, we'd find Beano very formulaic, wouldn't we?
And same with the superhero stuff. You're like, oh, well, someone's going to die now, so they've got a tragic backstory, and then this is going to happen, then they're going to get their powers, and you sort of see these. Oh, there's the love interest. There's the rival jock. Kind of, do you know what I mean? You can kind of see these things in the comics, and the more I've read shonen stuff, partly because I've essentially just read it for a month straight, I can sort of see these things.
It's like watching murder mysteries on television. How the character's introduced. It's got nothing to do with being a detective. It's got to do with how the TV program works.
Yeah, the sort of meta of it. It's like someone introduced in this show has got to be the killer because you won't get someone you've not seen before pop up and go, oh, it was me. Because the audience hate that. They wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
What about you, V? Have you got any...
I think for me, it's definitely... it's been a reading experience. Like, I'm more... it's taken away the not fear, but that sort of like we've said a bit better before, that sort of I wouldn't know where to start with.
Yeah, fear is something new, as it were, to get involved in it.
It's that sort of like, oh right, it seems quite hefty. But as I experienced with I finished Chainsaw Man like recently, and that
how many volumes is that?
I think that was hang on, I'll just look on the page now. I was just seeing it there.
You're on the Shonen, Shonen app,
Shonen.
And that'll say, does that say in chapters or something?
Yeah, it's chapters, which are essentially issues, isn't it? That's the way it is. I think it's 90.
So that is good, though, man. So you read 90 issues of comics.
In
the last week and a half? I'm going to say.
97.
97 comics, man, in the last week and a half.
Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah,
just absolutely blitz through them on that. It's great.
Yeah.
And you do fly through. I think sometimes like
I know it's different storytelling speed, isn't
it?
It's different storytelling speed, and certainly with some series, to be fair, there's a certain amount of underwriting that's done to characters. They're not like, it's not a fully fledged I think with Chainsaw Man, like, you know, the action and stuff is just absolutely phenomenal. It's great fun, but there are moments where it's a bit simplistic in its characterizations.
Yeah. That's one of the things I don't quite gel with in some of the areas of
and you do get that, I think, with quite a lot of these series. And I mean, I don't know because I haven't tasted as many of them, but it seems like those bigger sort of franchise stories are very much sort of like, there's 300, you know, just sort of, you probably think, God, there's 180 chapters of this. They're not all going to be Alan Moore. This is probably, you know, and there was certainly some chapters of Chainsaw Man. I had to go back and check how many pages of it, because I think some of them were shorter than others.
Okay.
It was a kind of like, oh, that moved really quickly.
Yeah.
But, you know, and sometimes it's double page splashes and stuff. But yeah, it's that I won't look at the numbers and be fearful of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm more likely to go, right, let's start this from the beginning, because start at the beginning. If you can tell by chapter 10 if you don't like it, and then you're like, well, yeah, it's not for me. And certainly there were titles that I tried and I haven't quite gone back to yet, but they're all sort of unique, different.
My
stuff.
recently read stuff on that app is littered with titles. I've gone, I don't understand it, or no, not for me. You know what I mean?
But I think the advantage of a title like that, because I've been essentially reading exclusively digitally, that, for want of a better word, fear that I had going into a bookshop and being intimidated by all of those volumes and thinking, where do I start? I would maybe, you know, try something online, you know, just try a couple of chapters and think, right, I know where I am with it now.
Yeah.
Go into that bookshop, know what I want, and pick up the books. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of broken down.
I mean, literally, you can just go in and pull book volume 1 off the shelf, and away you go.
I love that one.
That looks great.
Yeah.
It's a shame that what I really do like the app. You know, we've said all month that we really like it, and it's really worked for me, and it's certainly been cost effective, and you know, it's a good price. But it's a shame that they don't have a lot of the stuff that I gravitate towards more.
I'm finding that. Yeah,
and that's purely from a publisher level, because Shonen Jump.
They put those books out. That's their business. You know, it's a shame there isn't another area, another app that's $1.99 as well that has the more. It would work differently, because I find that the Gekiga stuff and the Seinen stuff tends to be more panels on a page.
I mean, if we say like this, the Shonen Jump is essentially the Marvel app, right?
Yeah.
What I think, you know.
Yeah, that's right. It's one company, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe if there was I'm going to laugh when I say this, the Comixology. Do you know what I mean? Another overall broader app.
Like Comixology Unlimited, like they have in America.
And there could be. If there is, please let us know about it so we can get stuck in.
I think there's a load of free ones, but we don't sign to that, do we?
Yeah. But if there was one like you say, you could just try lots of different flavours of titles and stuff. They'd probably make a killing, an absolute killing.
Are you going to keep the app, guys? Is that the plan, or?
I'm going to see how I get on with it.
Yeah, I'm going through a bit of a I'm going through a cull with subscriptions. You know, those ones that you forget you have, and you just think, God,
Pornhub.
Yeah, never get rid of that. I'm a lifer. No. But you know, when you're sort of like, I haven't used this for ages, but Shonen Jump is such great value for money, and there is at the moment, certainly for the next few months, I'm not going to exist stuff that I'm only just starting to give a try to. But I think one thing I will say about these titles for me, it's very much I'm just in my reading headspace. There's so many of them, so many different styles. For instance, I was on Chainsaw Man. I wasn't reading another title at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, I've my brain is connected to this one. I don't think I could read, you know, Sakamoto Days, which I've given a
that brings up a really interesting point, V, and it's something that maybe it's why it took me a while to get into it. I think with a lot of comic art, even between artists and certainly between sort of areas of the world, you almost need to get your eye in a bit, don't you?
Yeah.
So the sort of the beauty of BD and the intensity of each panel and how it's drawn, there's a lot there, isn't there, per page, if you just used to reading a Marvel comic. And I think that's the same with manga. I almost had to get my eye in a bit with it all, because Kaiju #8 was one of the first ones I read, and that was just wild.
Yeah.
And I really had to settle down and try and concentrate more on it before I actually began to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah. I've started that one. That was, interestingly, that was the first one I tried.
Right.
After you guys spoke about it. And and I stepped back to try another title, but immediately I was like, I'm really going to enjoy reading this one. But like say, I need to sit down, cup of coffee, and just go through like God knows how many chapters.
The one I'm going to talk about later, I had to read the first chapter twice. The second time, it really got me. The first once, I was just like, didn't take any of that.
And that's interesting because that can be a killer for a lot of like, you know, indie comics, small press comics. You don't get it right on the first read, you've lost them.
That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, the advantage that these titles have.
I felt that I had to invest in them. I had to invest my readings, you know, myself, my comic reading self, into them before, you know, I'm just a sort of casual read on the train home.
I think there's so much to be said for this medium. All of these books, all of these titles, all of these creators, they're not beholden to us. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep making this stuff. They're going to keep doing their things. For one, I mean, it almost doesn't matter what we think because they've still
that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I'm glad, and neither should it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, me going, I don't like that title. It's rubbish online.
Don't get it going nowhere. May as well fucking shout at the front of your house.
Yeah. So, and because
they pay no attention to Twitter, you kind of got to love them for that.
Yeah.
But it's also got this adverse effect because you don't hear many people going, I don't like this title, I don't like that title. But people will recommend, have you read My Hero Academia? That's great, you should read that. Have you read One Piece? So all you're getting is this positivity that the creators have nothing to do with.
Yeah,
they're creating their comics, and the comics are what selling the comics.
As it should be. The picture of the character is what is on the front of the comic, which makes you buy it.
Yeah.
Not the picture of the creator going on about some rant of theirs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I want to read a comic about Thor, or I want to read a comic about Crying Freeman.
But you'll follow that creator when they go on to their next title because you know they can deliver the goods, but you fall in love. Hopefully, the readers fall in love with the next creation they come up with. Do you know what I mean?
There's always been that discussion, isn't there? About I remember a few years ago online, everyone was going, "Oh, you don't follow the character, you follow the creator." And I'm thinking, I've been following the character for fucking decades. What are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
But I also do now that I'm an educated person and I pay attention to boxes in the comic and on. You know, I follow the creator as well.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, if they've got a good take on something, you follow them, they might have the same. Or you could read a Tom King comic and then realise he does the same thing every fucking comic he ever does.
And also, I think because of the
depressed man manga.
Yeah, I'm gonna break something, deconstruct this character. Oh, great, here we go.
Here we go. But also because of the culture divide, the language divide. Because we're so we don't live anywhere near Japan. We're not near this. If in Japan. Certainly, these readers might be like, "Oh yeah, I know about that creator. They were on this program, or they were on that." They might have more of a presence. But for these Western audiences, there's none of that. The comic doesn't come with the bag. Yeah. People may not like the way I'm going.
They might as well be on Mars because we don't know anything about them. Personally, I don't know anything about them.
The comics do not have the baggage of their creators.
Yeah, I think that's great.
A lot of the time, it's just the comics, and usually you'll find that the comics are so strong it's like, who is this creator? And then the fans read up about the creator. I think that's a benefit because you can only judge the comic on what it is, the comic, not the creator's political opinions and what he thinks about fucking vaccine mandates. It's just the comic stands or falls on its own merits. It's
there is that freshness to it, isn't it? There's that, I do like that about it. I mean, maybe if we really get into it, we would find there is, but at the moment,
there is.
Where it is,
we can read in blissful ignorance.
I mean, enjoy speaking of creators, because we said we don't pay attention to them. Did you have any favourites? Whose art you liked, or story writing you liked, or anything like that?
I'm going to read more of the chap who did the Shigeru Mizuki, who did Onwards Towards Unable Death. I'm looking to see more of his stuff.
The Showa history books he did, they're good, but they're a little bit dry. But the yokai stuff's good. Yeah, I think you like it.
Yeah, I don't think anything's any particular creators has really left an impact. A bad way to say it. I think I've still got so much more to read. I think before I follow things. I mean, there's the classic. I mean, I'm a Junji Ito fan anyway, so so I'll always come back to that. But I'm excited about finding out. I mean, like I say, I finished Chainsaw Man. What did that person do next?
It's still going, is it, Chainsaw Man? Is it still going, or does it end?
Well, the story on Shonen Jump and the story, for want of a better word, is over.
Oh, okay.
But on Shonen Jump, it finished in a sort of like, this is the end of the first arc. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So are you quite happy just to have that digitally, B, or would you consider buying it physically now?
I think the experience that I had of it, I was quite happy reading it digitally.
Yeah, it's like that for me with some of them.
Yeah. However, some of the pages would be gorgeous prints, or just that artwork. Because this is another thing I've noticed about the medium. Is these comics, and I don't know what you lovely listeners think as well. Sometimes these comics will stop to say, "Look at this art."
Yes.
It'll be right. Everything's moving, conversation. Even the action with the speed lines and everything, and then there'll be a page or a double page spread where it's just like, just look at this.
I was reading that Barefoot again this week, and it's for a pod I did with Dave Robertson. And there's a moment in that where the bomb has exploded. It's all about the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima, and the bomb has exploded, and everyone's running through the streets, and the main kid is trying to get home to save his parents, and running towards him is a horse on fire. And it's the most incredible page, man. Fucking hell. Just this, just this horse, and it's the way it's run. It's very old school Japanese, and drawing almost like you see it on sort of publicity stuff, Japan at the time, But it's just incredible. Blew my mind. Absolutely brilliant. I would love to have a print of that on the wall,
Yeah. So I was listening to that, T, and I was like on the running machine.
It's quite bleak, isn't it?
This is fucking bleak. I had to turn it off and do some music.
Cheer yourself up. Yeah, it's really dark, man. The anime. Have either of you guys seen Barefoot Gen?
No, I've not. I think Eamon gone.
Oh, so Eamon also mentioned, was it Fireflies? That thing.
I've not watched that because I've heard so many people watch it and said it's the most depressing experience they've ever gone through.
It's a similar story, Barefoot Gen. So the creator of Barefoot Gen, he experienced it. He was there. He was right at the, almost at the center of the blast. And you've got this really interesting combination of autobio comics, which is what it is, or slightly pseudo autobio, with history comics, because he was there. He fucking watched it. He watched his father die, and the stuff they go through in that, and it's not all completely put into the anime is free. You can find it on YouTube. Actually, the anime there's two films, and not the whole thing. So it became 2,000 pages worth of manga, but the first story is all about the family and the utterly sort of really poor lives they lived and stuff like that. And then the bomb drops in the last 50 pages of a 250 page manga. But you miss out all that soap opera bit. But he does well because what Nakazawa. But what he does is he builds up the characters in your mind so that when the bomb drops, it's so much more impactful.
Yeah.
He doesn't make them sweet. He doesn't make them nice. He makes them real. And it it killed me, man. That book is such a kick in the nuts. You ever wanted to be anti-nuclear? That's the book to read.
He wears the hat to sort of stop people freaking out the fact that he's not got any hair. Yeah. Is that right?
He does in the next volume, yeah.
Okay, and there's a parallel. I know maybe it's a bit contrite, but like Steve Guttenberg in that film, The Day After, he wears a cap because he's suffering with radiation sickness and he doesn't want to freak out the people he's with because all these hair's falling out in clumps. So he wears a cap all the time and he sort of reveals that.
Could be where he got it from.
I wonder if it was a nod to that or kind of just straight up lifted from Barefoot Gen. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the kid does wear a hat anyway.
Yeah.
But that does hide his bald head. Yeah. God, it's bleak. It's amazing achievement. But yeah, it's pretty bleak.
I know maybe it's distracting the topic a bit. When like a couple of weeks ago, the nuclear war was being bandied around on fucking breakfast TV, and it's like as people who have lived under that threat in the 80s of that and fucking watching information films at school. That dredged up like fucking hell, not this. Like I thought this was a fucking a nightmare that had been dealt with and gone away. It hasn't, but
I remember like things like Threads in the UK when the wind blows. Do you remember that cartoon?
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking.
And we put a content warning at the start of the episode because people just don't want to hear about it when you've got to talk about Ukraine and stuff, and the possibility of it, being used there. Hopefully not. But yeah.
I was just
maybe we should show Vlad that comic.
Yeah,
things.
Well, I said Reagan puts in his diary after watching Day After Tomorrow. The Day After Tomorrow. I can't remember the title. That basically that changed his sort of preconception about nuclear war, and he's like, we can't fucking do this. It's good that a politician can be swayed that way, and bad that a politician can be swayed that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? He's got to watch a film to sort of show you how bad it is.
Anyway,
he should know.
Before Gutenberg talks him out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these people getting fucking roasted alive. John Lithgow's in that film.
Oh, okay.
It's worth a watch. It's like very it's TV, like it's a TV film, but like it's horrific and it's very sanitized, but still very horrific.
Yeah. Well, the thing about manga is a lot of the really amazing manga comes from that post-war period, doesn't it? I know we talked to Helen about it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it comes from making comics for people to read, because everyone was pretty poor, which takes us all the way back to what we were talking about at the start. That
lending library idea is nuts. And the fact there was kind of honor-based, as in like, there was only one copy of this, and you read it and then you brought it back. I just can't imagine that working
like Tribute
nowadays.
Press. We only ever print that one copy.
I can't recall listening to the episode. Did Helen ever broach the subject of manga going digital?
I think we mentioned the act to her, but I can't remember what she said.
Because, like, I would presumed in Japan, would that not be like quite contentious? As in, the manga book is such a staple of being read and passed around or whatever, but now you got like this digital subscription, which
I don't know. Actually, that's interesting. Yeah,
if they push the books on digital, what's the kind of, because the Western is still finding our feet with it, aren't we? And you think it's going okay, and then comicsology shits the bed. So you kind of
it's interesting. We maybe ask her. Yeah. Can we? Thanks for asking, Tony. Who are your favourite creators? I might just say a couple of mine if that's right.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Yoshishiro Tatsumi. He did. I read 3 books of his. One is called Abandon the Old Man in Tokyo. One's there's 3 of them, and they're brought out by Drawn and Quarterly. They're quite slim, actually. Slim volumes of short stories of people who do live in that post-war Japan period. And as soon as I started reading it, I thought, this reminds me of the stuff I'm trying to do with the Hall Chronicles and stuff, because it tells stories about individuals who are sort of swept under the carpet and nobody really knows about, the underbelly of Tokyo in that sort of poor, a lot of them are prostitutes, a lot of them are, thieves, and, there's people who work in the sewers and stuff like that. And that is I bought one of them for Al Henderson, and he messaged me back saying it's bleak, but it's so well done. It's just a really good way. And I think the Hernandez Bros, they quote it as a reference, as an inspiration as well, and you can see that. And that's really, really good. Yoshishiro Tatsumi, and it's printed in Western format as well, which does help my old eyes. The bloke I talked about last week, Tadao Tezuki, did Slumwolf, is a very similar, slightly more underground version of the bloke I just mentioned there, Tatsumi. But again, the sort of bleak underbelly of life. The other one I've just started reading, actually, I don't know if you've seen it in the shops, it's called Summit of the Gods by Yuki Nakamura Baku and Jiro Taniguchi, who's a really good artist. I'll be talking about him in a minute, but it's about a guy about mountain climbing and stuff. Have you seen that in the shops?
No.
Really, really good. The artist, it's by the same artist as the guy I sent you those pictures through earlier from today.
Ah, fantastic! Yeah, they look great.
Yeah. So they're a couple, and Tezuka, I was blown away. I'll be talking about him again in a minute, but Tezuka's just amazing, man. The breadth and storytelling ability that dude. When you think he does Astro Boy, but he does some super adult stuff, which I'll be talking about later. That you can see why he's called the God of Manga. Amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've also done that Boichi artist who kind of did that woman manga. Like, I know he's done some. After looking at some of his art, he does like some adult material, which kind of stumbled across. But like, just generally his work methods and just the workmanship and how he works is just fascinating. I generally, the way the manga artists work, I've kind of started to look at and think, right, how can I adapt this to work into my process and change how I do stuff? And that won't be coming into effect anytime soon, but it's something.
Did any of you read, what was the one the PXD sent us? Was it called Dick Fight Island or something?
No,
I didn't read that. No,
I've heard of that one, but
sounds great.
Quick to deny that, Dan. Very quick to deny, but yeah. Good.
Yeah, no, it's kind of self-scolding because I haven't checked it out.
Yeah, they're some of my favourites. I do like that. I do like that sort of short story thing, which we don't really think of when we think of manga, do we? We don't think of like the short storytelling stuff, but there is actually loads of it, almost like 20-page short Twilight Zone episode stories. And I really loved some of them. Just amazing. Yeah.
Have you come across any issues or problems when you've read these comics? Technically, not technically, but there's a couple of things that bugged me when I've read them.
In what way, mate?
Go on.
Panel flow.
Okay.
There's a couple of times where, like, when you're reading right to left, and it drops, and sometimes you get the 2 panels and then the big one.
Yeah.
And my brain just instantly fucking screeches to a halt, and like,
yeah, there was a few double takes.
Yeah.
When I was reading Chainsaw Man, definitely, because just
there's some of the
still gets me. I can just about figure out which way the pages go now. Especially with a physical book, but you're right. The eye darting, because your eye darts naturally when we read comics. I mean, we've read so many thousands.
But it's been trained for like 30, 40 years to do this.
And sometimes the dialogue or the translation dialogue is so vague that maybe I've read some bits in the wrong order, but it still kind of made sense.
I know. You have to kind of put it together yourself.
Yeah. It's only when I've sort of read bits and just been like, hold on, that didn't make... What? Oh, it's in that order. Okay.
I mean, comics has always been a visual clue that we mentally pick up and make up in our heads to a story, don't we? It's not like watching, that's why, it's simple to watch a TV program, but to read a comic actually does take sort of almost a form of interaction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think with that, you get that when you see a whole page of story, you kind of immediately gather what's going on, don't you?
Yeah.
Before you then drill into each panel. But yeah, I've had a real trouble. Every day I catch myself going the wrong way on a page. Every day.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But some stuff is printed in a Western format, isn't it? So I read Beth again. We were talking about there. That's printed like that. I actually bought the English and the Japanese versions of that, which was quite an interesting experience just to see the Japanese formatted manga was much smaller, and also was full bleed, which I noticed.
That page with the horse, it's a lot more impactful when it's.
I think it is
full bleed. Yeah, agreed, because it comes right off the page, and you're like, it's unconstrained. When it's framed in the panel boxes, it does constrain the energy a bit,
aren't you? Almost. Yeah, you're looking at, like you say, a framed picture. But yeah, I think with that full bleed thing they tend to do. Also, I think I mentioned it in the episode, but there's they also had to change out Albert Einstein, and I think they made him someone who looks a bit like Mark.
Yeah. I didn't understand that. Why?
No, must be a rights thing or something.
Well, maybe it's like you can't just take a direct pop that Albert Einstein was well up the
pressing the button for the bomb to go off and stuff. Yeah.
So I can understand why they want to change that. That might be culturally a bit insensitive. Another thing is, this is a personal thing, is like the translations of stuff. Sometimes I wonder, has this been translated faithfully? Because sometimes in reading it, I'm not sure if this is that doesn't sound right, or do you know what I mean? I'm not sure. Was that the original language? Has it been translated faithfully? Has it gone through someone and their input has changed the meaning to this? And I can never know and never find out. But that kind of knowledge of that event taking place sometimes like flares up when I'm reading something, and I think, was this supposed to be like this? And it's kind of an itch I can never scratch. Do you know what I mean? It's it's like I know there's a man behind the curtain working the magic, but I can't. I just can't get to the bottom of it.
I find a lot of dialogue. I don't want to say childish. I don't want to say juvenile. I just find it a bit over melodramatic occasionally, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I think you get that in shonen manga a lot.
Yeah.
And elsewhere, in a lot of other manga as well. But I just think that sort of quick to emotion, quick to anger, quick to happy, quick to song, thing is more of a shorthand in manga that we don't see perhaps so much in the rest of the comics.
I mean, I was joking about reading a story where for fucking issues, the main character was just sort of kept saying, I just want to touch boobs.
Yeah, it wasn't about us.
No.
It's like some of them are fucking bipolar. They go from like extreme anger to sadness in panels, which is it kind of gets you involved in like the extreme emotions. You're like, whoa. But to be fair, like after reading it for months almost solidly now, or a month almost solidly, I'm kind of completely on board.
I've got used to it now. Yeah. When you look at American comics and British comics, we are quite fast to punch people in the face, aren't we? Yeah, that does happen quite. So there is a sort of parallel, I suppose. But
Yeah, people just getting decked for no reason. For the most tiny reason. The other thing that gets me, and it's the sexualization of younger kids, girls,
that worries me.
And boys. Like it's like with the girls, you'll get kind of like there's a 12-year-old girl and she's got like a chest of like a 25-year-old woman, and it's just like this is really weird. I
find it uncomfortable, man.
Yeah, it makes me feel like more of a creep than I already am. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're reading it, you think I was really enjoying this, but now it's kind of like, oh, this is a bit weird. And they do it with the young boys. They get like thrown into a situation where like, oh look, his hips are pushed right up against this woman's arse on the bus or something, and you're like, why have you done this? This is kind of like tonally, it doesn't really sit. I don't know. I just the
whole sexy schoolgirl thing, man. We left that alone with Benny Hill. We don't need that anymore, you know. But it does seem to endure a little bit in manga, I think. Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's a kind of a cultural thing, and I don't want to kind of like cast aspersions either positive or negatively because I'm ignorant on the subject. But I'd really, not a fan of it.
It's not everywhere, but it is in
No, not at all. Yeah, it always fucking comes along when you're just kind of happily reading the way, and then this
and then, and then you have these sort of like, okay,
and this is coming from me, and we're on this podcast.
I know,
you know what I mean?
There's some sensibilities coming up in one of my recommends later that surprised me.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it till then. But I know what you mean, man. I do worry about that sort of thing, and I think there are people who unscrupulously take advantage of that style of comics, don't they? You know, we've seen it.
Yeah.
I've certainly complained about people at MCMs who've been selling hentai that's know, tentacle schoolgirl porn. Like, fuck me, who buys that? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, bear in mind one of the books I'm going to talk about now is going to make it seem like I'm a massive hypocrite, but, which is fine.
Which we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've stayed away from that part of manga, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I've.
Me too, but like sometimes it's
you can't avoid it sometimes.
You can't avoid it sometimes. It's like, oh, here we are with this. It's like, how did I get here? It was, if you watch a video on a YouTube's recommendation and suddenly you're being fucking, oh, why not join the Fourth Reich or something like that? How the fuck did I get here? It's fucked up.
How about the actual sort of some of the techniques and the way it looks? I mean, one of the first things, now I'm not necessarily just talking about the art now, but one thing that strikes me is the lettering and the speech bubbles, and that's a very visual difference.
I think there is a lot of cases of translated manga that doesn't reduce the size of the speech balloons or expand them. I think
they can't, can they?
Because you got
there's no art behind.
Yeah. I see that quite a lot, man. And because of the way that Japanese is written up and down, almost, it's sort of, you're missing, it's just so differently formatted that you get these huge white spaces on pages quite a lot.
I was thinking if I did a kind of a faux manga comic, I would have those speech bubbles. Even if there was Western words, I'd have a big speech bubble just to sort of like say this is part of the.
And I've certainly seen some Indian small press comics that clearly influenced by
and do
that. But Tony, you were saying you had a Japanese version and a sort of translated version of a book. How was it visually different then? Was it? Did the original text fill more of the speech bubbles, etc.?
It did a bit, yeah. I have to say, I just really love looking at. Not that I can read it or anything. I love looking at Japanese calligraphy, and seeing it on the page. It just really looks beautiful, doesn't it? But there's quite a lot of space around it. They don't tend to wrap quite as closely as we do in American and the UK comics.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think because they're much more of a sausage factory, aren't they? They can't always, it's bang, bang, bang. Here you go. Got 20 pages this week for Shonen Jump magazine. It's like that. But there's a lot more white space on the page. From looking at it, it's a beautiful thing, though. I don't know why. I just find that because we all look at those, the iconic Japanese artists, non-comic Japanese artists, and it's just like Japanese calligraphy on the top of a beautiful drawing. Sometimes it kind of looks cool,
it becomes part of the page in the artwork. It's not.
And the sound effects being in Japanese as well has a real effect on me. The non-ballooned, non-panelled lettering. You know, when you got boom, or I think the one I sent you was raw, wasn't it? They translated it into raw as the bomb went off.
I'm totally cool with them doing an asterisk and then at the bottom of the page giving you the Western translation.
Yeah,
I like it. I'd rather,
with a sound effect, definitely.
Yeah, with a sound effect.
I mean, the book that's going to be my recommendation, like later, is definitely you've got the original sort of Japanese text, and they do put a couple of like little letters near it to sort of suggest what it would sound like.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't necessarily do it for. Do they do it for all of it? I need to go back and have a look. But
I suppose the need for it to be translated has never been greater than now, isn't it? They must put it in turnaround to get it, translated straight away.
Yeah. And fair play to all the translators who are working out there, and the letterers, because I've noticed that sometimes the translator isn't necessarily the letterer.
Yeah.
On these books. Have you noticed that on any of yours? Like I noticed on.
I haven't actually, but it's an interesting point.
Yeah. So I'm guessing someone's like looking at the book and opening up Word and just pretty much typing it all out, and then the letterer. Then what an interesting process that is.
Yeah,
must be.
Sorry, go on then.
No, I've had to do stuff where I've done logos or a bit of document in a foreign text, and you got to send it back to the translator and then send it back. You got to change this, got to change that because of the way the text is flowing.
Right.
So I can imagine, like, if they did a Western one, it would come over to the West. It would all get done in house and then onto publishing or printing. Sorry.
I'm just looking at some of the ones I've got next to the chair here, and some of the panels, not the word balloons, but the panels aren't always wrapped with a line, which I find quite an interesting approach. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So it's almost like the words are part of the image, essentially, which I kind of dig. I'll send you a picture actually, and you can see that. But I kind of like the way they've done it. It's isn't that good the way that it translates it for you? But there you go. Yeah, the
technology marvelous.
Isn't it marvelous? Yeah. They do sometimes. In one of the ones I'm going to talk about later, they do, and in another one they don't. But yeah. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So
it's been a fantastic month.
It has.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
it has. I think it's been a fun month. There's so much value for money. There's so much to be explored there. I mean, we said a similar thing when we dunked our head into the water of like the European market as well. So, speaks volumes that broaden your minds. They say that travel broadens the mind. I think that works in terms of like reading from all over the world as well, different sort of titles. Because I especially with like manga, the influence is just growing. I think it's just because the generation of like writers and artists and everything that are coming up now, most of them and the next generation, because as we're saying, it's so huge now, it means that the next generation of comics, we're going to see more westernized.
And we're going to survive, folks. We're going to survive the next generation.
Yeah,
someone said, can Westerners create manga comics? And I'd say no.
No, they just got to create comics.
Just create comics.
They're too busy. They're too busy watching the new series that's been on Netflix. Oh, you're so bitter. Oh.
You know what I mean? You got to create your own comics. Don't try and. You can try and ape other people, but like you got a unique voice yourself, and people want to hear that tale and that comic.
Yeah, totally. So it's been a fun exercise, I think, for something we've threatened to do for a while.
I loved it, man. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. I threw myself into it.
Yeah,
I covered myself in them like I was at a big party.
Oh God.
I think, Tony, I think maybe out of the three of us, you've gone the massive, deepest dive.
Large,
you obviously you got the NIA stuff you spoke about as well, but like,
that's been great. Sort of learning about the history of it as well. I've really sort of dunked my head into, which I know we touched on, for a couple of hours with Helen, which was brilliant. We must get Helen back on. What a nice lady she was. Yeah.
Seeing you kind of like a lifelong creator, like a massive comics fan, maybe the biggest comics fan I know, kind of take to this.
Being taken to school by Helen was great. Yeah, it was.
It was the joy.
Yeah.
So we hope you have been reading along with us, and or you might have just been screaming at your pod
pronunciations.
We've got a couple of people that we asked questions about. Shall I quickly mention?
Oh, yeah, go on, yeah.
Edison Neo, he said he reads manga. Slam Dunk got him into manga. It was the first franchise he got into about watching the anime first. My friend bought Slam Dunk Takabons to class and would read them under the desk during class, bored as hell. I would do the same and eventually got sucked into one of the best mangas ever. He started getting into Shigeru Mizuki after hearing Tony's reviews of Beth again and onwards toward Noble Deaths. He hasn't started reading it yet, but it's on his list. Some of us was read Akira and Nausicaa after I first saw the mangas. None of the other manga trends at the time really hit the spot.
That's because he's an old bloke like me. That was the sort of first wave, wasn't it, that we saw of people of our age? Yeah.
He said the magazines should have been great tasters, but for the 3 or 4 strips, the early ones always ran too short to be the money's worth, and I didn't have a VHS player or a TV at the time, so it was a waste of money. If I'd hung around for the chunky anthology that soon followed, I think it would have been properly hooked. And now is the problem of too many manga, too long for the time I currently have. The NBM books, the Gekka stories brought me back. They seem to dry up after a couple of years now, so I'm taking notes for stuff to try out. Thanks to the ACP and NIA. So,
good man. Thanks, Simon. Yeah, in fact, Simon sent me a manga which is sitting there ready to be read. So thanks.
Brilliant. There you go. We've had quite a lot of feedback from people, and they're really enjoyed this month. And
it's been nice. Yeah.
So don't be afraid to look at those bookshelves and just, if you're not sure about where to start, then just, the internet's there to just sort of research. If you're like,
we did loads of what's the best samurai manga, and there's lists everywhere, aren't there? You can find them.
It's loads of lists.
Yep. Likewise, just go to viz.com and the Shonen Jump app is a good I think that's a good starter. I think that's a lovely sort of flavor test. I think because you can just try a title on it, and if you're one of those, I prefer to read a book, but you're not sure where to start. Try something like that. Try a chapter or two. Just read it digitally, and then go and buy the books. Then it's just as simple as that. One thing that about this month, and I think last week's episode was a good example of this. Is there is the sort of frustration of when you hear about a great manga, fantastic one that's finished, and you want to just go into a bookshop and try and find it, and you can't find it for love nor money. I know there was the Tepu that Edison told us about, and I thought looked great, but the only way that you can see it is there's a cheeky link site, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on, isn't there?
Yeah. I really did look to see if there were copies anywhere. Some of it's really hard to find, which I know you had with the Demon Slayer books, wasn't it, Dan? Was that was? Or was it Berserk?
Yeah,
or was it?
That was missing in action for about 6 months at least, isn't it? That
Berserk and Demon Slayer both very hard to get hold of.
Yeah,
it's real troublesome. Even worse when the Berserk creator passed away.
Of course.
Just everything just went. Yes.
So yeah, but there's a title out there for you. There really is, of all kinds. And we'll be. I think we've all got our recommendations, haven't we, later? Keeping in the spirit of manga, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, mine are both manga. Yeah.
So we're still we're fully fledged manga for the rest of this episode. But of course, let us know what titles we should be checking out, people. Ones that I think ones that we would be quite interested in, the ones that necessarily aren't something that hasn't had an anime, something that hasn't had loads of what's going under the radar that we should be checking out.
Yeah,
like I said, I'm on the eye out for kind of like more of the seinen stuff and the gekka stuff. That's kind of
yeah. So we will be don't be surprised if in our recommendations moving forward you see more of these titles.
Yeah,
that's the beautiful thing about the show. The more we discover, the wider range our recommendations become, and the more you hate us for adding to your wish list.
Yeah, or just
bought loads this month off of fucking.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
God bless comics. Do we have any shout outs this week, gents?
I've got one. Just say thanks to everyone for listening to 2 years of Never Mind Anything.
Hey, well done.
Thank you very much, guys. You've both been on it. So I'm probably going to keep going, see how I feel.
Why not?
That's how it goes. So we are. Got an interesting round table coming up with me and Eamon and Al which we're really looking forward to. We've thrown a lot of research into it. I was just sort of learning about the history of comics, really, and I've learned loads. Yeah, it's been good fun.
Awesome. I've got one shout out for a Kickstarter from my good friends at the Spider Forest community. Threads, Creatures, an anthology of short stories about beasts of all stripes, from forgotten strays to fantastic dragons. That could do with a little bit of a hand. It needs a bit of help, that one, to get over the line. But they always deliver big chunky anthologies from Spider Forest. And if you're looking for kind of independent creators with a voice, go check that out.
Oh, can I do an extra one that I forgot to mention?
Of course.
Metallic Dynamite, 100 plus page sci-fi comic book anthology, written by Jordan Thomas. It's got some great artists in it. Lucy Sullivan, Shaky Kane, and also two of the stretch goals. I think he's revealed now. One is Mr. Clifford Cumber, and the other one is Mr. Adam Falp. So that's pretty cool. I've pledged to it. They've done their money, but I think you're probably going to want this. I think it's going to be one of those books. In our little scene, it's going to be.
I'll bet that one. That looks fucking great.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Right, it's that time to recommend, and as I said, we've got some manga flavoured recommendations to finish off the month. We've each got a couple each, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's the plan, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, who would like to go first?
Why don't you go first, V? I want to hear what you got. I know the other two, but I don't know what your two are.
Well, the first one is Shonen Jump title. Another one that I've to be honest, I've only just started on, and I did go back to sort of start it again, if that made sense. You know, that whole sort of started it, wasn't in the right mindset, went back, and I think I'm there now, and I'm really enjoying it.
So why didn't you like it the first, or why didn't you feel it clicked the first time?
I think, and this is weird, it was around the Chainsaw Man sort of time when I was reading that kind of title, went to a different title, and it was like, perhaps I'm not ready. You know, it didn't click with me straight away, but I kind of liked the premise. It didn't click with me, but I knew it wasn't bad. I just knew when you read a book, you're like, I'm not in the mood to read this right now. I think it was more that kind of thing, because I've gone back and it's immensely fun. I think there's 87 chapters of it, so I'm going to be churning through this one for a bit. This is Sakamoto Days. Have you read this one?
No, I've never even heard of this one.
No. This is on the page. It says, "Kill some time with former hitman Taro Sakamoto," and it's got that sort of flavour that I love in stories. You know, that absolute badass who is now living a normal life, but they're just hard as nails.
Yeah, I love those fucking stories. I'm all about those stories.
But this is a proper action comedy, and then when you see him, you're like, what? And the logo, the little O of one of the O's, is like his little face, in a way.
Yeah.
And I'll read the first couple of pages, the dialogue from the first couple of pages, because that sort of sets it up. It says, once there was a hitman who was considered the greatest of all time. His name was Taro Sakamoto. He was amazing. All bad guys feared him. All hitmen revered him. But one day, he fell in love. He retired, got married, had a baby, and on this lead up, you're seeing like him. He's sort of like a lean-looking guy with sort of tied back, sort of pale hair. He's got like these glasses that have that sort of Sin City look. You know, where they're round glasses, but they're just completely white. You know what I mean? So there's no reflection of anything.
Yeah.
And you see him like he's just taking people out effortlessly. And then there's this build up, and you see it when it says he fell in love. You see like this really cheerful lady going, "Welcome." He walks into a shop with his shopping, and she's like, "Welcome." And that's the moment that he completely fell in love and his life changed and he got married. And then it says, and Sakamoto got out of shape. So there's a splash page of this guy who 2 pages before was a lean, long black trench coat wearing assassin, and it cuts to now, and he's just sort of laid on the ground with an elbow on one pillow, and he's put on weight. You know, he's got a big tubby face, he's got a big belly, And in the background, you can see his wife smiling. He's got a kid who's very happy. This is one of those. This is his life now. You know, he just settled down, but naturally, and his face is the selling point because he has a little moustache. And it's a character where he's got this sort of strange sort of button nose, and all you can see is the moustache, and the shape, the way they draw his head is like his head is a potato.
Right.
He doesn't fit in with the rest of the rest of the world. Has a sort of standard look, if you know what I mean, a manga sort of look. And then there's this guy whose head looks like a potato with a pair of round glasses, who now just sort of like works in a convenience store. But he has these little moments of like, you know, someone starts something and he thinks in his head of how to kill them.
And does that a lot.
Yeah, and you see these scenes of like someone kicks off in the shop and he stops them, and then immediately in a couple of panels he's got a pen in one hand and he flicks the lid off the pen, and then there's a good half-page panel of him taking the back of this guy's head and jamming the pen into his neck. But that's what he's imagining this thing and just thinking, oh, thank God I didn't do that. But then another character comes into his life. It's someone who used to work for him, who is another hitman called Shin. But they're a clairvoyant sort of hitman. And immediately when they sort of say, hello, it's been a while, there's another panel of Sakamoto just breaking this guy's neck with one panel, with what, like one hit. But Shin can read minds, and he's like, I used to work with you. Why is killing me the first thing you thought of? You know?
Still Dan.
Yeah, and it's very, and then it goes on from there. They have a huge fight, and in the true over the top nature, there's like gunfire. Shin goes in. These two end up sort of working together, but they do have the natural, you know, the classic, the two heroes fight each other before working together.
Yeah.
And this Shin goes to shoot him in the store. And this what I will tell you now will kind of explain how awesome this book is. Sakamoto is he's just reading a newspaper and he's got a cough drop and he's just like, you know, just chewing away. Shin comes in and he immediately pulls out a gun and he fires it. He wants to fight him and he fires it at Sakamoto. Without even turning away from his newspaper, Sakamoto spits the cough drop out and the cough drop blocks the bullet. It's just insane. I was like, I've never seen anything like that before. And whereas this guy's got a machine gun, Sakamoto's like then just fighting him off with like rubber bands he's got in the shop. The action is kinetic, it's full on. I'm looking forward to see where this story goes because it will just get bigger and bigger. He's still a badass. He's just a badass that's just got a few extra pounds on him, and he's always got like. He's always in like his overalls, and he has like just a pair of slippers. He's got like slip-ons, so he's murdering people left, right, and centre, and he's still got overalls and slip-ons on. It's just it's just really good fun, just really good fun. It's so I mean, I think from going from one style of story to this, I was like, what? This is different, and certainly with the art style change as well. I was like, "What?" It took me a while, but now I'm in it, and this one's immensely fun. It's an action comedy, and you'll see what I mean if you go to like Shonen Jump and you see the cover, because the cover is him, the classic action pose of sort of holding two guns, but instead of one in one of his hands that's like pointing towards the reader, instead of a gun, it's one of those scanners that people use at the cash points, like the registers in shops, but he's holding it like a pistol. Yeah, great. Sakamoto Days, I think, is going to be great. I think this will be one, Tony, that, you know, if it keeps going the way it's going to be going, I'm going to put on the shelves. I'm going to put on the shelves.
Okay.
I wonder if it's on the shelves. Is it? Have you seen it? Or
I haven't seen it. But yeah, that's not to say it's not, but it's got 64 chapters, so it's still going. And it says on Shonen Jump there's a new chapter coming in 7 days, so in a week, so it's still going. So this is a fairly fresh one, but Yeah, great stuff. So that's my first one.
D, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't want to go next. Let me scroll up. I'll start the one which makes me sound like a massive hypocrite earlier from saying about like it's Battle Royale. We were talking about briefly before the show started. It started first with a novel. We weren't sure if the manga came first or was it the film. A cursory Google search could answer that, but it doesn't really work on a live podcast. It's not live; it's pre-recorded. So I'm fucking up big time. So Battle Royale is a seinen manga series written by Koshu Takami and illustrated by Mayasaki Taguchi. Apologize if I've murdered the names. It's based on Takami's novel of the same name. It tells a story of like a junior high school class who are forced to fight each other to the death on a remote island, and it's televised. You can sort of think of the Hunger Games, but one that sort of maybe over delivers on the premise. It's fucking brutal. The manga, I think, essentially follows the plot of the novel very closely, but expands on the backstory of each of the students, which at the start of every book, you get like a scoreboard. So it's split evenly between there's the half the class of boys, half the class of girls, and all their names and profile pictures. And as they eliminate the competition, their picture gets blacked out, and you're told at the top how many people are still in and how many people have been eliminated. So it's a good, handy way of keeping track. Essentially, the story will follow each chapter. Each book will follow the main story. The main story of the protagonist gets pushed along, but it will focus on the student or students that appear in that part of the chapter more closely. So you'll get what they're up to on the island and what they've been through at home to bring them to where they are. And usually the storylines both kind of correlate. Like there's one kid who's kind of like a real overachiever, and his uncle's got like severe concerns about the government because it's relatively repressive. That's why they put this game show on to basically show the youth that if you fuck around, this is what can happen to you. I don't think it's a great deterrent from stopping people playing up by just randomly picking a class load of people and killing them. But I mentioned like the sexual content, like I'm not sure what the high school age would be for these, but like most of the characters in this are engaged in like sexual relationships. They've been sexually abused or something. That lots of them are horrifically screwed up. Like some of the more level-headed ones, and certainly the protagonists are relatively unscarred. But by the time they get to the end of it, they're carrying sort of psychological issues from having to deal with the death of all friends, the death of the friends around them and classmates. So it's a heavy book, a heavy series of books, but a fun read. I really enjoyed it. When I started, God, I must have got these about 15 years ago, and I started reading them. I just absolutely tore through them. I was like, I'll write the next one. I'll get the next one. And I think I got that manga fever that once you start reading, before you know, you're kind of like, oh fuck me, I'm nearly halfway through it, and I haven't even only feels like I've been standing for a couple of minutes, and I've got that. I feel really guilty if I pick up a book in a shop and I've read a load of it, and then I'd put it back thinking, oh, I ain't gonna buy that because like, I've already consumed it. It doesn't feel right. So I bought that. I don't, not sure if you can actually get them on any kind of digital app or anything. So you could just go and pick them up at the bookshop, I guess. I did look on eBay because I think I'm missing book one. I might give them book one to someone as a gift or to check that out. I never got it back. So they're all on eBay if you want to check it out. They do like collected volumes and stuff like that. But
that's still available and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is one I've kind of like put on a shelf away from my son because he's kind of got the manga thing at the moment. And Lordy, I don't want him to get him hold of that. It's got warnings on it, mature ages 18 plus, which is well deserved.
Okay.
Although like there's lots of kind of like cartoony faces, as it were, an over exaggeration. The violence is absolutely realistic. It's like people getting shot and stabbed and heads smashed in. It's it's one of them. Yeah, it's brutal. So that's Battle Royale by Koshin Tamaki and Mayasuki Taguchi. That's one thing I'm not going to miss after Manga Month.
Exactly. Yeah. Back to Brian Jones. Yeah.
I can go back to Murder and Western names.
Yeah. Oh, which reminds me, I didn't say that Sakamoto Days, by the way. I didn't say that's created by Yuto Suzuki.
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
I want to put that on the app, VM, read that.
Yeah.
I'll look at that one. Yeah.
Okay.
My one's Under the Air. It's by Osamu Tezuka, who we've talked about, the god of manga. Published by Platinum Manga, 288 pages, black and white, 14 short stories. So going back to what I was saying earlier about me enjoying the sort of short story format thing going on, all different. It was written between 1968 and 1970. Originally published in Play Comic. Tezuka described how he was fond of each and every story. And he felt that each and every story, if you really wanted to, could have been developed into a much longer running manga, but he just felt that they would work better. It's like reading a comic version of The Twilight Zone, put it that way. Just individual, well-written, clever stories, all different. None are based on, they're not all based on Mars or something like that, Yeah. Here's what I wanted to talk about very briefly is, when I bought it, it was a bit like Laura Palmer. It was wrapped in plastic. It had that sort of cellophane wrapper to it,
Bloody hell.
Do you like that? It didn't... I saw that... I didn't even... When I picked it up, this is typical me, innit? I thought, oh, this is wrapped in plastic. This is bound to be lively. I'm going to take this one home. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't even look at the name of the person who'd written it, because it is actually written quite small on the cover. I sent you the cover yesterday, guys. But it's not wrapped for that reason. I'll be honest, I thought it would be full of filth. It's not. Although there are a very sort of scant couple of boobs in a very cartoony... Tezuka, I know we've all looked at him, has got that very not simplistic, but he's got that sort of more broken down, cut down line to his work. He's not he's not a noodler, put it that way. It was only when I opened page one, which I also sent you, is beautiful. It's like this long look into a cityscape, and you're looking down between these sort of tower blocks. And then page two, I realised why it was wrapped in plastic, because it uses, because in the first short story is called Joe's Visitor, and this is when I realised why. There's a white character in it who's kind of the main character in it. He's not a nice person. He's got a big scar down his face, which is a ploy that Tezuka used a lot. He used it in Blackjack as well. And then he goes into a black neighborhood in this city. I think it's meant to be New York. I kind of get that impression from the way the alleyways and tower blocks are drawn. Yeah. And the black people in it are extremely caricatured in quite an insulting way. Very much in the way that Eisner did. And he gets criticised for that as well. It's certainly not something we would entertain drawing or writing for or anything like that. So I thought, okay, right, well, this is the reason, because as we all know, people in different times had different sensibilities and, weren't as perhaps sensitive to how other people felt, So I thought, I'm going to read on. Nevertheless, I think there are people out there who would go, this is terrible, go straight to Twitter and the dustbin, throw it away and complain and never read onwards. But what you do is you get a story that actually concerns the elements of race. He doesn't draw them particularly nicely, the people of colour in this story. There's a real black and white minstrel blackface thing going on that I wasn't particularly happy with. But the actual story, when you look at the story, is about a white man who is the villain in this story. And basically he's at war. He's a sort of captain of a brigade or corps of men. And he pushes this black man in the way of, uses him as a shield, and the black man gets killed. Now, he also gets seriously injured, and he is taken to the World War II hospital. And Tezuka always does this. There's always these amazing medical operations going on where people have their whole body transplanted or something, and it's a thing that occurs later. But he has the organs of this black man put into him. And basically what Tezuka is trying to say is that we're all the same under the skin, man. This is what he's trying to say. He doesn't, he does it with the cartooning of the style of the time, sadly. But I think there are people who might knee-jerk away from this comic before realizing what Tezuka was saying. There's a really interesting. So I read this and I kept reading, and there are some other stories in which I'll very briefly tell you about. But there's an afterwards where Tezuka Productions address these concerns and they clarify. I think this must have been post the death of the mangaka. And they said that Tezuka was extremely vocal during his life against all forms of bigotry and discrimination. And this is what he's actually trying to say in the comic. And it really does have a sharp meaning to it that I won't ruin the twist. Each story is roughly 18 to 25 pages long. And it's a really impactful story, really interesting. It's told with a noir feel to it. Put it that way, in the same way we've already it's been over-explained to us over the years how Star Trek was groundbreaking because it managed to transplant issues of race and war and social problems into a science fiction way, and that's the only way they got away with it. This transplants the issues of racism into this sort of wartime, almost sci-fi story. It's interesting, but that is only one of the stories in there. They're absolutely brilliantly paced. As more and more I read of Tezuka, the more and more impressed I become with him, like constantly. There's some other unusual narratives. So this is one of the reasons I've so enjoyed reading manga is we've really seen other ideas. I think Western comic makers in all genre fiction really tend to fall into the same old trap of stories again and again. You can almost predict, she's going to turn on him, she's going to meet someone else, he's going to kill him, it's all this sort of thing. We see the twist coming, but because they're from Japanese was certainly at the time he wrote these was such a different culture to us. It wasn't this really sort of linking up in the world and the internet.
No, yeah.
But they're doing stuff that just is completely unexpected and no more here than here. There's one story about a man who's in love with a donkey. Another one wants to change his DNA so he can sleep and run away with and fall in love with his sister. There's an escaping criminal who kidnaps a family and hides in caves that send people crazy, and you realise what he's doing and why he's really there. There's a DJ who works in a Tokyo a radio station who fails to save a woman he sees fall down a grate. There's a deep well where people fall into it and transform into half fish people. Just really, really strange stuff. And when you think this is from the same guy who did Astro Boy, Buddha, Blackjack, and more, Tezuka's just incredible. He actually appears in a number of the stories. And he doesn't just appear as a character. So there's always there's a couple of stories where he's wandering across the country and somebody says, "What are you doing in this town?" He says, "Oh, I'm just here looking for stories," And then there's a couple of instances. There's one that happens on an alien planet where the fog comes in. And one of the main characters who's trapped in the fog said, "This makes it easier for the artist. He doesn't have to draw us all because we're covered in fog." You get these little moments. It's really cleverly done. You have to pay attention to it. The art is denser with multiple panels on a page, more so than we see in perhaps some of the Shonen Jump app. Certainly the stuff I've seen. It could easily be expanded into being a full-page American comic, even more actually sometimes. And reading it will take you a while. It took me the full day to read all this stuff. It's quite. It's quite impactful. Each story does really pack a punch. There's a lot to each one. It's like watching, like I say, it's like watching 12 episodes of The Twilight Zone one after the other, because there's so much in it. You're getting your head around so much. But I'm really glad that we're seeing all this other stuff coming out. I think this is only a recent release and there's more coming. I think 2 came out this week. The only reason I didn't buy the other one, it was about the size of 2 bricks put together. It was one of those sort of massive things. It just wouldn't fit in my rucksack. And so I'm definitely going to get the rest. But it's called Under the Air. Please don't be put off by the clear racial stereotyping in it because it actually is done for the right reasons. The story, the drawing perhaps not, but the story actually works really well, and is probably on the side of the angels. But absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that's my first one.
Okay,
nice one.
My second one is a book that's been mentioned a few times in the past. It's a creator that's been mentioned a few times in the past, but I took it during Manga Month. I took it off my shelf just to look at it again and go, "Oh God," and feel sick and nauseous in the most wonderful kind of ways. Now, here's the back of the book blurb. The floating smell of death hangs over the island. What is it? A strange legged fish appears on the scene. So begins Tadashi and Kiori's spiral into the horror and stench of the sea. Here is the creepiest masterpiece of horror manga ever, from the creator of Uzumaki, Junji Ito. Hold your breath until all is revealed. Something's rotten in Okinawa. And this is Gyo, by Junji Ito. A lovely, I've got a lovely little hardcover version of it, which you can get. You should be able to get in your bookshops and online, etc. Though the full name is The Death Stench Creeps, Gyo. And this is a real... I mean, this comes with 2 stories, actually. One of them's like a small, just sort of supporting material at the back, which is probably the greatest, one of the greatest short comic stories I've seen, which is
okay.
Which is the classic. As I'm looking for the title of it now, you know when your mind goes blank.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is. God, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It is the Enigma of Amigara Fault. Of course it is.
Oh yeah,
of course it is. The twisted horror story. This is included in this volume, as well as another twisted one, which is the sad tale of the principal post. And Gyo itself, it's all kinds of fucked up. This is body horror at its twisted, black and white line art. Anyone that's read any of Ito's stuff, I think he did one a Melting Classroom recently over the past couple of years. Is that him, isn't it? And did he do Spiral?
I read Censor.
Did he do Spiral?
Junji Ito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? So, and just lots of weirdness. This one is definitely... There are sharks with strange spider crab legs. There are... there's slightly... It's sort of... There's some body horror / body modification. There's pipes, gore... innards on the outside. There's... disembodied arms, there's infections, there's weirdness. There are some strange designs that will probably leave you a little bit sleepless. There's one creature that's it's like a human body that is it's hard to describe. It's nightmarish to describe. I don't want to describe it because I won't be able to sleep tonight. Horrible things happen to people in it as the infection gets bigger, but it's all told with it's just wonderful horror storytelling. It's a mystery that as it goes on, it broadens and gets worse and nightmarish. You feel sorry for the people that are going through this horror story, and I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'm not going to. But if you want to try, if horror is your jam and you want a good sort of go to. This for me, this was my sort of like, oh my god, if this was put on the screen, people would leave cinemas. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of they just walk out. You'd hear stories of like walking out because that's the beauty of the comics medium, that you can put the nightmares on the page like this, and this is certainly sometimes when you see Western comics, when they try doing like truly disturbing twisted body horror sort of imagery, it's a one panel stab. Do you know what I mean? It's like one of those, isn't this monster creepy? But Ito is sort of like, isn't this monster a thing of nightmares, and you're going to have pages and pages and pages of it. Sleep tight. It's a real masterful storytelling, I think, in this. So yeah, it's a good entry point if like really messed up horror is your jam. Gyo, by Junji Ito, and I know that's a name that's been mentioned a lot of times on the show, but I wanted to give that one another shout out. It's also a lovely little hardcover book. They're really nice as hardcovers. I know a lot of mangas are the straight up sort of little paperbacks and stuff, but there's beautiful little hardbacks. That's my one. Okay. Dan, you're next.
Nice. Back to me, yeah. I thought I would jump on the Jujitsu Kaizen train and check that out on the app. I had a little tale to tell before I got on it. And I was completely wrong-footed by the app. I started reading it and then thought, right, I better write a synopsis up for this. So I typed out, right, what's that character's name? So I put in Jujitsu Kaizen, and it's telling me a different story, a different characters. Right. And I don't understand this. And it took me a little while to work out that the first chapter you're presented with on the app is actually a prequel story to the main story. And there's a reading order. You should start like, it was actually chapter 0 it starts at, but you should start at chapter 1, read up to chapter 9, and then go back to this prequel story, which is because that's how I think that's the print order. So when I was obviously reading this prequel story, it presumes you know a lot. And I was reading this thinking, am I fucking getting this? I don't understand this. It feels like I'm kind of halfway through a story, and obviously I was. A story, it's a self-contained arc, but I think some of the characters that were introduced there are already in the main series. And because this is set like, I think it's like 10 years or so earlier, they're younger than they are in the main series. And I obviously had no idea about that. But it's a nice little self-contained story. The main character, Yuti, he's haunted by a curse of his childhood friend, Rika, they were kind of like a young boy and girl. And they said, when we get married, when we get older, we'll marry each other. And Rika gave him this ring. And unfortunately, not soon after gets run over and killed, and she kind of haunts him as kind of like this monstrous kind of entity that follows him around. You can't see, but if he's ever threatened, it will come out and just absolutely fuck up whoever's kind of threatening him. It's ridiculously powerful, and he kind of gets twigged by this chap and gets brought into this Jujitsu Kaizen like high school. And there's 3 other students there who kind of are learning alongside him, and he's got to kind of get around how to use this power. And you get introduced to these 3 other students he's with, which kind of like threw me off, because there's a girl who has like a spear and is kind of like a bit of a kind of a wizard sorcerer. Apparently she's a massive character in the later series. There's a panda bear, which is just like a panda that talks and can cast magic spells, and they're all about kind of like taking away these curses that people have. And there's a chap called Toge who's a bit like Black Bolt. He's kind of like cursed, and he's got like this tattooing on his cheeks and on his tongue. And he's got to be careful, because any word he can say that can happen to the person he's talking to. So if he accidentally said crush, that's what would happen to you. So he only ever talks.
Pickle penis.
Exactly. Yeah. He only talks in the ingredients from rice balls.
Right.
Which he gives an ingredient of the rice balls when he talks to someone. And it's sort of his tone and inclination of how he's kind of expressing himself to you, because he can't say any other words. They're safe words. All the other words he says could be cursed. But he's kind of like, there's a lot more to that character. He's actually like quite a deep and sensitive person, but he can't articulate himself. And the character design is great, because he wears like high collared clothing or scarves around his face that cut off by his nose. So you got a visual representation. He's constantly trying to cover his mouth, which I thought would be quite a sort of touch for Black Bolt. I mean, yeah, his mouth is on show all the time. But I guess he does want to deploy it as a weapon every so often. So,
Chamber. What's the name of the character in Generation
That's the
X?
one. Yeah. His whole face, lower part of his face is blown away, and it's always on fire, isn't it? Yeah. So like, I think I'm gonna have to go back into it, because I really enjoyed the first bit. It descends into kind of people flying around and fucking each other up and great big monster battles. But that's not the main thrust of the series. So I've kind of been wrong-footed there. So just beware of that if you're going on the app. Don't make the same mistake I did, because it doesn't give you any warning that's the case. You just, here's Jujitsu Kaizen. I'm reading it and thinking, okay, it's fair enough. I don't really understand this. I feel like I've jumped into the middle of a story that's already been told, but that's why. So don't read the prequel chapter first. Read the main story. Okay. I enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, I'll check out the rest of it, see if it bites.
There you go. Check that out. And Tony, what's your final one?
My final is Benkei in New York, story by Jinpachi Mori, art by Jiro Taniguchi. It's a pulp graphic novel. I bought mine in the 90s. It's 220 pages long, black and white. When I say it's a pulp graphic novel, Pulp was the manga magazine that came out over here that had the adult manga in. So it did have Crying Freeman, and it had this in there as well. It's kind of, again, a series of short stories, all with a central character and a central theme. The titular Benki, in the first story anyway, he owns a quiet basement bar in Greenwich Village. There's no sign, you can't find it. You have to be invited in. He actually has to come out to the street to show you where it is. But before you see the bar, he's in the street, he's sheltering from the rain. He bumps into this guy, and the pair start chatting. And Benkai invites this dude to his bar. He says, "Oh, well, here's my card. Why don't you come to the bar?" And they meet in the bar, and they continue to chat. The story is called Haggis, I think it's called. Now, the artist Taniguchi clearly has never seen haggis, because he draws it on a plate as if it's like biscuits. But the dude eats them anyway, and they have this chat about it. And it turns out this dude was a man who dodged the Vietnam draft in 1969. And the bloke turns up and sits next to him. And he says, "Who's this bloke?" And he says, and Benki says, "Well, this is the man whose mother you killed." So in order to dodge the draft, this bloke went to Scotland and got in a car, got a lift from a woman in a car, and he's purposely crashed the car so that he can be injured, so he doesn't get sent to Vietnam. And it's almost like Benki's kind of the host of this story in the first one, And what he does is he basically leaves 2 knives for these men, who then fight to the death as he leaves the room. And I thought, this is quite cool. There's almost a touch of the horror host in that first one about him. But Benki also, so as the stories develop, each story has a different theme and it happens around a different story. You realise that Benki isn't just a bar owner. He's also an excellent painter and forger. That's part of the story. But he's also, his main calling is in settling vendettas. And it becomes like a really interesting episodic noir modern thriller. So each story has that noir theme to it. And you slowly, as the story goes on, you get more insight into Benkai's life. He ends up meeting and falling in love with this prostitute who he takes back to paint. And she starts slapping. It's a really strange moment where she starts slapping him around the face. And she keeps slapping him. And she says, "Now I can see the real you." Because he's this sort of, he looks like he's a sort of slightly stocky, big-faced, chubby, big chin, like absolute killing machine. And she can keep slapping him until he reveals himself to her, which is this really interesting moment. And a lot of it is he plays out. He's like a modern Yojimbo almost, where he's sort of almost, he can be hired to do stuff. And he's got this fixer for him who's this blind beggar on the tube. He always puts him in. It's full of like really cool language. He says there's one line is like, "You like the night, it's more honest than the day." And then one he says he might seem invincible to you, but that's just an image. And one of my favorite ones is, "A horse with its arse on fire is going to kick up a storm." And somebody just says that randomly. I think it's like the best line ever. The art I genuinely think is Otomo level, really.
Whoa,
is.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent you some pages earlier, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yes, fucking hell. Like, absolute, he puts you in the place. You're in every single street. You're in between every building. He draws every bottle in the bar, And he's absolutely a force of nature. He's this like revenge. He takes on vendettas and revenge for people. But he's that wise. He can tell when people are lying to him. There's this one guy who comes to him and says, "I want you to do this," and he goes, "You're lying to me." But there's also an element of the sort of vulnerability to him. There's almost like a childlike nature to him somehow, even though he's a great painter. He's a super skilled killer. He's got this sort of almost like Buddha-esque wisdom to him. And there's also a vulnerability to him, which you discover through this female. And, he does like to protect people and stuff. But every story has this sort of really bleak noir morality to it. We hear about it, don't we, all the time? There's these sort of rules to noir. If a woman turns up to hire the detective, she's clearly a wrong 'un. There's no way about it. And it runs off a lot of those theories. Sadly, I had a look online. I mean, I bought mine in the 90s. I had a look online. You can't find a copy for love nor money. Fuck. What you can do is you can find the issues of Pulp magazine that he appeared in and get them. And each one, I'm guessing, will have a whole story in it. So it's quite nice because these are sort of 18, 20-page stories. There's the only ones I can see is obviously popular in Germany. I found one in the US, which was about $50 plus postage. So what you're going to pay? You're going to pay about $80 for that, aren't you? 60 quid or something to get it, which seems a little bit too much. So don't go into that anyway. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. It's sat on my shelf for so many years. And I think I maybe just read the first few pages and then put it on the shelf. And I really regret not doing it. And that's why I bought Summit of the Gods, which has got the same artist in it as well. A Walk in the Neighborhood he did. I think there's one called A Day at the Zoo or something, which I've just purchased as well. I was showing them to Jason Gunn earlier, and he says he's his favourite artist. And I can see why. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Yeah. And the fight scenes are really well done there. Lone Wolf and Cub standard to me. You know, they really do. They show that.
Nice.
You know, the way you see in a lot of samurai, a lot of martial arts, it's the faces of the two people. You know, the battle is almost won by the way they look at each other, you know. There's that famous story, is it told in Lone Wolf and Cub, where the two samurais are on either side of the river and they know that they can't cross the bridge at the same time because there's not room for it. So they know they've got to fight. And they look at each other and they realise, just in looking at each other, they're so equally matched that they'll both die. So they both walk off to find another bridge in different directions. There's almost that sort of element of looking across at people and summing them up sort of thing. Yeah, beautiful stuff. Yeah, really good. Benkai in New York, if you can find it. Small one.
There you go. A bunch of strong recommendations to finish off Manga Month officially. We hope you have enjoyed this month. It's been fun for us, and hopefully you've enjoyed us talking about all these fantastic creators and their books. And like I said earlier, don't be surprised if you see some more recommendations in the future in the show notes. But
still got about 4,000 pages of comics left that I bought this month.
Yeah. So it's just going to be extra things that eventually going to fall on Tony and kill him.
Yeah. Naked.
But have you had to make any sacrifices for new shelf space, T? Or is it just there is enough space?
All the DVDs gone in the garage, my friend.
There we go.
Yeah. I was realising I wasn't watching them, so they've all gone in the garage.
Yeah. I've got 2 great big crates of DVDs that go up in the loft because.
So they've been replaced with a bunch of books that you never will have enough time to read.
Well, I've read all the books.
Yeah. One fine day.
One day.
Yeah.
But as I look over from my deathbed, one day I'll get to read them.
Yeah. Yeah. If you enjoyed this show and want us to shout out about anything in the show notes, or what other sort of genres, etc., do you want us to talk about in future shows, or comic making sort of processes, etc., please let us know. Several different ways you can do it. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @TheAwesomePod, where we'll put a shout out to the listeners or talk about our latest episode, etc. Blah 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 blah. All of that jazz. We also do the same on Facebook.com/AwesomeComicsPodcast. Join the community group Awesome Comics Talk on Facebook, as well as the Slack group, the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack group. Get in touch with us to find out how to join that. Very easy to do, and it's just all those communities are full of people that just want to talk about comics without any.
That's the place to be, man. Be in the Slack. Yeah. It's really fucking good.
All seems to be happening there, doesn't it?
But I'm currently running a project over DMs on Slack. It's great. It's really handy.
Are you doing that project on there, are you?
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
That project's on there.
Oh, what is that project? You'll find out soon enough.
You won't actually. It's going to be a secret.
Oh, right. Surely, though, it'll come out at some point if, like...
It may do, yeah.
If your artwork's part of it.
Maybe.
Will it? Maybe.
We'll have to see.
Who knows?
The secret project.
The only way you can find out exactly what's happening with said project, or whether you're going to see it, is to listen to us in the future. Whether it be on the website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. Helps get the word out about the show and everything we talk about on a weekly basis. Likewise, if you listen to us on any other networks such as Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on Pod Trolley Rage.
Pod Trolley Rage sounds like some sort of band from the early 90s.
Trolley Rage.
Or maybe where one of the member of this podcast actually kicked off with a trolley.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Got proper Larry,
and then put in their phone, must tell the boys about my trolley incident.
Well, the young girl approached me like, oh fuck, this one's gonna be a problem. And then
the thing is, we were really building up the mystery of like which one of us is it, but then Dad's just giving it away.
Yeah.
Don't approach him in public when he's got a
I
trolley.
kick the fuck out of a Sainsbury's trolley, and I'm proud.
Oh dear. I mean, you might not want to bump into him when he's got a Sainsbury's trolley, but where can people find you online, Dan?
That's a good shout, V. You can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. I am on Twitter, unfortunately. Or you can go to Patreon/Vanguard Comic, and you can see behind the scenes on all the this and that, which I'm getting up to.
Which you really should.
Join me.
Well, that was a little bit cult leader at the end, Dan. I think we were going strong until you went a bit Charlie Manson. Speaking of cult leaders, Tony, where can they find you?
Yeah, neveronanything.com, and have a look on the socials for Fanscene. We've had David Hathaway twice on the pod before, and he's got a new one coming out, which I might have a bit of something of a polemic appearing in there of mine.
Oh, fantastic.
Ooh,
yeah.
Lovely. When I go away to find out what that word means, you can find me on social media.
What I do all the time, you'll find out.
At Jester Diablo. And thank you very much for listening and for listening to all of our episodes this month. It's been another fun one to do.
Yeah, thanks for being along for the ride.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, long time coming.
Yeah. So, but next week we're probably it's probably just gonna be we're getting a little bit spicy and a little bit ranty, so it'll probably be us three again. But buckle your seatbelts, people.
Moaning.
We're back in the room. I tell you what, we've had too many weeks of reading comics and being happy. It's time to go back to what we.
I've already got two built up, ready to explode.
Yeah. So it's going to be a good one, but it will be fun. So stay tuned to the social medias and stuff, because we'll probably ask them, sort of put out some statements and questions, etc. Put out statements. That sounds a bit serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like questions, etc.
Written agendas.
Yeah. It's all about the agendas. So until then, we'll see you next week. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy, healthy, and doing okay. I was rougher than I thought recently with the old vid, so I'm all right now.
Of course, shit, yeah, you had it, didn't you, V?
Yeah. Lots of it.
Still, cat couldn't scratch it. You told us.
Yeah,
you done the classic transition from the cold to COVID.
Yeah. I upgraded. I got enough experience points in order to upgrade, but it wasn't something that I wanted. But so we know it's everywhere at the moment. So be safe and be careful, and like us, stay away from people. But listen to us next week, because we'll make you feel better. And until then, thank you very much for listening. Read loads of comics, discover loads of new comics, recommend them to your friends and to us, because we want to read new comics as well. And until next week, from Dan, Tony, and myself, have a brilliant week. And what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.